Hi, my name is Max Lenderman. I've been fortunate enough to be at the forefront of some major seismic marketing trends and shifts. The first one was experiential marketing and the movement from brands kind of espousing a promise or messaging something to more of an experience-based approach to how customers grow their trust with brands. At the same time, I've been really interested and really involved in the notion of brand purpose. As a matter of fact, last year the ANA called the term brand purpose the term of the year because a lot of brands and a lot of organizations are looking at it, and some of them are scratching their head and others are diving in head first. And when talking about brand purpose, I often say purpose is the new digital. I hashtag it almost all my posts on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I speak a lot about it. And it's gotten a lot of really positive feedback because it's a great analogy to what I think is the massive shift in how people are appropriating, using, badging, and elevating and amplifying brands these days. And it really comes down to purpose and why does the brand exist in the world. And so look at it this way. The banner ad is only 22 years old. Now think about digital and in your marketing career and in your career in general and looking how brands are built, etc. Think about how much the world has changed in those past 22 years and how some of those really massive brands who didn't get on the digital train, where they are now and how much they're struggling, whether they exist or not. And think about how those early adoptive brands that got into the digital space, head first, think where they are now and where their customer base is and where the competition is trying to catch up. So purpose is the new digital. So let's take that analogy. For most companies right now, they say they're purposeful and they'll point to their CSR report, usually buried in page 40 or 50 in the quarterly report for a corporation. And it's usually centered around sustainability, governance, community building, etc. And they say, yeah, we have brand purpose. Check this out. Look at how much we've donated. To me, that's like a company that is looking around going, do we really need a webpage? Really? Then there's some companies that are saying, hey, we have a really good brand story in what we do through our CSR work, right? So, and then they elevate it to the point of, even Super Bowl commercials. So if you saw the Verizon ad, for instance, one of their major tenets for corporate social responsibility is supporting first responders. And so they're making a campaign out of it and they're showing the world, hey, this is actually what we're doing out here, right? Same thing for AB InBev in the Super Bowl when they touted their solar capacity and their sustainability capacity. But at least they're elevating that CSR story into really good creative and telling the world about it. That's akin to having a web page when digital first started out. Now, there are some brands that are seeing that their role in culture revolves around some kind of positive social impact, and they're going and putting their money where their mouth is. The likes of Levi's around gun control, or Dick's around gun control, or Nike with the Kaepernick ad, right? So they are elevating their status in culture by taking on positive social impact. And that's like kind of having an app, right? You're beyond the curve in terms of what the digital kind of ecosystem needs, and you're going a little bit further. And then there's the purpose native brands, right? Where their existence has social impact woven into it from day one. Tom Shoes, Tesla, REI, Patagonia, etc. And these are the brands, if you start looking at it, are the ones that are really kind of becoming the leaders in how modern branding is accomplished and how consumers are interacting and creating brand trust with them, centered around brand purpose. And you see kind of like Airbnb moving into this space and finding a lot of dividends and becoming more purpose-led and talking about inclusivity and talking about we all belong. So you see some really good modern large brands really going into this space and thriving. And then you see a few others that are not doing a great job at all. Like you could talk about the Pepsi-Cola and Kendall Jenner ad that was just huge blowback, right, etc. You could talk about Starbucks and some of the things that they've done, whether intentional or not, that kind of had some blowback, and they're kind of navigating what is their purpose in this world, quite frankly, beyond overpriced coffee. Sorry, Howard. So purpose is becoming a really key component to modern marketing. And the reason is because most people in the world wouldn't care if the majority of brands disappeared. All you have to do is read Havas Meaningful Brands Report or Edelman Brand Trust Report to see that, hey, brands, large brands, are going to have a really hard time being relevant. And to close the loop on why purpose is the new digital, what digital really did is open up the aperture for commerce and marketing by giving people personal choice and convenience in how they buy brands. I think what purpose is doing is it's actually aligning people's values to the brands that they want to choose, support, and badge themselves with. So it's another element, like if you think about like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what purpose does for brands is starts to actualize them. Right? So it's not just kind of meeting the needs of consumers, but actualizing the brand in an anthropomorphic way that really provides that resonance. Now, combine that with experiential, right? Real world action. So it's not just messaging that we're sustainable. It's actually going out there and changing operations. It's not just messaging that we're against gun violence, but actually going out and lobbying, right? So creating mass movements, creating opportunities for people, like-minded people to meet under a brand umbrella and create action that either helps or inspires. And that experiential element of brand building is where the brand trust is going to lie in the future. So combining brand purpose and brand experience is really kind of the most powerful dynamic that I could see in the next 10 years of where really good brand building is coming from and where incremental revenue exists. Just like digital opened up wide arrays of ways of creating growth and creating opportunities and creating actual profit. Purpose has that same capability. We often say profit is purpose and purpose is profit. And today, in today's modern marketing economy in the US and globally, that is the most truthful statement that I've heard in the year. That's my spiel for today. Hopefully I've sparked a thought, but more than that, hopefully I can spark an action. Thank you.
Well, here we are. And although this shirt might be the same, the world is radically different. So what's happened in the past 7 months? That's germane to the topic of brand purpose and strategy. Well, the first is quite daunting. Remember the statistic I shared with you from Havas Meaningful Brands report that says globally, the majority of people wouldn't care if 77% of all brands disappeared. Well, unfortunately, that's actually happening right now. So brands are struggling to find the reason, the why, that they should earn their place in culture in order for them to stay in business. And the biggest macro trend that we see that's happening is, remember when I said that marketing and advertising was going up the ladder of Maslow's hierarchy of needs into aspiration and self-actualization, etc. Well, COVID-19 has made us go down as marketers in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, closer to that base level of security, safety, shelter, food, belonging. Now, those elements at the bottom are all about brands trying to help and brands trying to inspire people out of a crisis. And it's really interesting because the brands that have traditionally been the safe brands, the brands that have been around with you for a long time, are winning. And younger brands who don't have that pedigree, who don't have that bedrock of stability and safety and familiarity, are struggling. And so they need to find their purpose fairly quickly, because they don't have the advantage of being around for so long. As a matter of fact, Procter & Gamble, the world's largest advertiser, announced that it's increasing its advertising in the midst of the pandemic because they know that people want those safe brands and they feel better about it. So brand purpose has been shifting with that kind of lowering of Maslow's hierarchy of needs into that safety, shelter, and belonging element. And that's really telling because that's a great place for purpose, brand purpose to play. We've also talked about how brand purpose has to show up in culture. It has to show up in real life, IRL. And we're seeing that across the board for some of the largest brands out there who are changing their product line, completely going into new businesses, right? Really looking to see how their operations can be restructured in order to meet that need of Maslow's hierarchy of needs of safety, belonging, security, shelter. So you see spirits companies starting to make hand sanitizer. You see General Motors starting to create ventilators. You see all these different fashion houses starting to make PPE equipment. You see all this movement of brands trying to show their utility or try to show their inspiration in the real world. And we've been talking about this for a long time, that it's not enough to just say that you're purposeful. You actually have to do it. And some companies are doing it not so well, as you see some of these TV commercials where it starts with the somber piano music and usually the voiceover says, "In times like this," right? That's not purpose. And if it is, you're doing it the wrong way. You have to be showing things in the real world, and people are going to reward you for it. We also talked about the anthropomorphization of brands, right? And the idea that people more and more are looking for brands as kind of manifestations of culture, of humans. A friend and colleague, Ethan Decker, who runs a company called Applied Brand Science here in Denver, Boulder, we did a quick study of over 400 COVID-19 brand actions, 400 different companies and brands, and what have they done, and what have they said they've done in the midst of this pandemic. And the majority of the actions that are being rewarded by culture is all about keeping employees employed, or treating employees with respect, or creating a culture or a safety net where if there's furloughs, there's an understanding that everything will be okay. And it's not just the employees, but the vendors of the companies, et cetera. And so this focus on humans has been a massive shift in the way that brands and companies are starting to showcase their purpose. And it's been amazing. And the second most popular and most prevalent action that brands are taking in culture right now is what we said. They're reoperationalizing themselves to be better social partners, right? So what AB InBev and Anheuser-Busch are doing with first responders is amazing, right? And all these companies, particularly telcos and media companies, are dropping firewalls and paywalls in order for us to enjoy things for free. Now, these are operational things that people are doing, that brands are doing in order to be more purposeful. And once that floodgate is open, it's going to be really hard for them to close those doors. The notion of brand relevancy and brand trust is more important than ever. Brand relevancy comes in the shape of, what are you doing in the real world to help me? And brand trust comes in the form of, what do you believe in that I believe in? What are your values that align with my values? And we're seeing a lot of brand relevancy right now in all the examples I've just shared, in terms of brands becoming much more utilitarian driven and assisted driven in order to meet the needs of their customers and of people. Brand trust, however, is taking a little bit of a beating right now, right? And it goes back to the somber piano music and the voiceover that says, at times like this, there's too much talk and not enough action. Edelman puts out a trust barometer every quarter, and they did a special one now. And what they found was that for a long time, people trusted brands and businesses more than they trusted government. So I think the list went something like, before, non-governmental organizations, businesses, government, media. Now what Edelman found out is, now it's non-governmental organizations, government, business, and media. So in a span of 6 months, what has been a trend for years has changed. And now businesses don't have or don't enjoy the same amount of trust that they did in the past. And this is a great opportunity for developing a purpose in order to build back that trust. Because purpose used to be, I guess, a marketing and advertising milieu. That's where usually it kind of hung out. Now purpose is operationalized in a lot of brands and companies. And the thing is that you have to understand that the role for brands and companies after COVID-19 is to do one of two things. It's to either help or inspire. People don't buy products. People buy solutions. And people don't buy what you have to sell. People buy what you believe. And so this is an unbelievable time, a little bit of a reset for the brands that can and the companies that can weather it and afford it, to stop and re-strategize why your brand exists, to stop and re-strategize why your company is relevant to your customers. What are you doing in the real world that are making you relevant to them? And what are your real world actions that builds trust over and over and over again? For instance, Airbnb's purpose is all around belonging. Zappos' purpose is all around delighting the customer. Right? REI's purpose is connecting humans to nature. These are simple statements, but that can drive almost every part of your company or brand mission, whether it's operational, whether it's marketing and advertising, whether it's HR, whether it's corp comms, etc. This is an unbelievable time to take purpose from being just a message into being an actual ethos, right? An actual operational paradigm for how you do business. And once you find it, it takes a lot of soul searching and a lot of self-awareness and probably a lot of aha moments that you may not want to know. It's hard work, but you actually have to ask yourself, if it wasn't for the money, what am I doing this for? If it wasn't for the business aspect of it, what more value can we bring to culture? Now, once you find your purpose, you go out and you see an enemy. What's the enemy to your purpose? That's where you play and you find partnerships and elements to find ways of combating that enemy in culture. Right? So Airbnb, with a purpose of belonging, can play in elements of, immigration, can play in elements of, well, right now it's first responders and housing, right? Zappos doesn't even sell shoes and stuff anymore as their primary business model. They're actually helping other businesses in a consultative way get better at customer service. And that's a revenue stream that's bigger than their online store. So once you have your purpose and once you find where the enemy to your purpose lives, that's where you can play and you can expand your business aperture. You can expand your brand awareness aperture because of the operationalized way that you're looking at purpose and where your enemy is. So the idea of being more strategically purposeful used to be a trope in marketing and advertising that the kind of more modern brands embraced wholeheartedly, right? And so there's some brands that are just purpose natives, the Teslas of the world, the Ben & Jerry's of the world, etc. But there's been a huge swing before COVID-19 of brands recognizing the power of being more purposeful and being rewarded for it in culture. Now I think brand purpose as a strategic lever of your business is imperative. If you don't have it, I don't know how you can be in business. So getting to that brand purpose and understanding, to use a Simon Sinek trope of understanding your why and being able to communicate it clearly, is paramount to the success of business for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So I urge you, everyone, especially from a startup perspective, do not neglect why you exist and what enemy in the world you want to see gone. Is it discrimination? Is it gender inequality? Is it hunger? There's so much. But really find that purpose and operationalize it. It used to be campaigns, and now it's business models. Thanks, I appreciate it. If you want any questions answered, I'm at maxlenderman@gmail.com.